There's devastating news coming out of Eugene, Oregon this weekend as Evan Stewart has allegedly / reportedly, fearfully had torn his patellar tendon in his knee. Joe, the wide receiver one at Oregon, unfortunately going down. I got to tell you, let me just say this. I know you're going to think that the way that I'm describing this is nuts. You know, when we go into like Madden or college football 26, 27, I always turn off injuries. I can't stand them. This situation with Evan Stewart makes me, it puts a pit in my stomach.
Yeah.
The number one wide receiver in the money year goes down, Joe. I mean, your thoughts on this? This is awful.
Well, I'm completely gutted. He confirmed it in a statement saying that thank you all for the well wishes. I'm on the road to recovery. Don't put a timetable on me. So he's trying to be as optimistic as possible, which is great. And I'm sure that everyone around Oregon is trying to be optimistic as well. I'm gutted just from the college football fan standpoint of I wanted to see what Evan Stewart was going to do this year. He was tremendously athletic, explosive player who first year at Oregon gets into the mix, has a couple of really big games, had this chance to emerge as the primary target with Tez Johnson gone. He was going to be the most gifted receiver that has played under Dan Lanning in one of his offenses and had the potential to outperform what Tez Johnson did and any of these other guys that we've seen over the past couple of years. So we lose him. We don't get to see what he's going to do. It's extremely disappointing. I'm rooting for him in his recovery. I think in 2026 and the 2027 NFL draft, he is going to be one of the biggest names if the recovery goes according to plan. That being said, my very first thought, I think that this sets up Dakorien Moore for a huge freshman season. I have listened to a lot of different recruiting podcasts and Oregon football previews. Dakorien Moore's name gets brought up constantly as a player that people believe could have an immediate impact first season, not to the degree of like a Jeremiah Smith, but more of a Ryan Williams, Cam Coleman, burst onto the scene, be the team's primary target, have a couple of huge games, help them win a ball game when things are unexpected, and have a huge play that closes the game out. They're hyping up. People around the program are hyping him up to the degree of one of the best Oregon players in program history. Like they think that he could be one of the greatest players that they've had based on the early glimpses. So as much as this sucks, the silver lining is Dakorien Moore could end up shining just like Ryan Williams did this past year for Alabama.
There's two things I want to get to that. Number one, when I went to Dallas with my brother and we did the Dakorien Moore commitment, the LSU commitment, Joe, my man was 30 minutes late because he was working out.
Love that. It's the best reason possible to be late.
I'm going to say this, and I think people understand the connection that I have with him and his family. I love this kid. I do. I hate that he's not the school that I cover outside of Ruffino and Joe show. I hate it. They ain't nobody putting in work like number one. No one. I promise you that. Conversations that I had during recruiting. Hey, what's up? He's working. He'll text you back in a minute. Okay. I mean, I don't care. Cool. I'm just saying what's up. Oh, okay, cool. There's something about him. I think he's going to be super special. I think that when you look at him and Ryan Williams before Ryan Williams reclassified were 1 and 2 because Ryan Williams should have been in this class. Dakorien Moore was number 2. Ryan Williams was number 1. Then the reclassification, you could have put 1A, 1B. It wouldn't have really mattered. Joe, I do feel as if that he is going to be a special athlete for Oregon, bar none. Here's the thing I want to throw out there. The Evan Stewart thing is not a lapse of talent that gets replaced with Dakorien Moore with Evan Stewart. If I'm being honest, and I don't mean to put this in a wrong way, if that's what you're calling the replacement, that's a hell of a replacement to have. But it's not my first thought for me, you're talking about first thoughts, wasn't Corey Moore. I feel like I feel justified in thinking that he's going to be special. Now, he's got to play that out in the field. My first thought was the other Moore that's involved in this, and that being the quarterback, and that being Dante Moore. Joe, there's something to be said about a first-time real true starter in the Big Ten with the expectations that they're going to have. and a true freshman receiver, right? Will Howard sat down with Gruden this year, and Gruden broke down, if you remember the interview, about some of the early misses that they had versus the late playoff heroics of timing. And Will Howard saying, listen, it was just a timing issue. But then I just started throwing it out there and saying, go get it. Now, I do think that for me, it's more Dante Moore focused because, Joe, you're talking about a 40-year senior here. You're talking about a guy that played in the SEC. You're talking about a guy that played in the Big Ten at a very high level against the Ohio State team that I just mentioned.
Yep.
It's going to be interesting when you have a lot of young talent. How do you overcome that? Because, again, this is the first real time that Dante Moore is going to start. And I'm not saying that he's going to be bad at all. I think he's going to be okay. I think he'll be good. But I always think that there comes a question mark with this of not having a very experienced senior that will be there. Just who are the other guys that will step up will be the question. I'm not saying they're bad, good, bad, or indifferent, but you got to point out the youth that will be in this situation.
I do agree with that. And I think that that's like the team dynamic angle that we look at when we talk about something like this, losing a veteran, experienced guy who's been around on multiple teams. When you've got a new quarterback stepping in, it really does help you that you have a veteran leader on the field at receiver. They're also replacing 2 tackles. There is going to be a lot of new faces. This does put pressure on Dante Moore. And I'm not saying that he crumbles under that pressure. I don't think that he will. He seems like he's matured tremendously in some of the quotes that I've read about him and what he's been talking about his experience and why it was amazing that, he kind of got to follow around Dillon Gabriel and sit behind him and see how things were working, and a true veteran and leader where was going to rally the team. But the team that Dillon Gabriel had was a lot more experienced around him than the one that Dante Moore is taking on. So I think that there should be not a concern, but a pause. We need to acknowledge that in the middle of the season, if things not fall off the rails, but if there's a slip up against an opponent they're not supposed to lose to, that's where something like this comes into play. To quickly talk about, though, expectations for the rest of this receiver room, Jeremiah McClellan is listed as the second guy at that X position on the depth chart. He had 3 passes caught for 24 yards last year. He is a redshirt freshman.
Right.
The other thing that catches my eye is Jurian Dickey, who was once a very highly recruited kid who is third at that X spot on the depth chart. He's a guy that I really hope can step up and play to the potential that everybody hoped that he would have, that he hasn't really reached just yet. There's a lot of guys in here that can do some great things. They're not poorly recruited at receiver. They're one of the best teams in the country.
No, not at all.
Recruited at skill positions. So they should be fine, but we need guys to step up and play to the expectation that we once had for them.
Joe, they have a month to get things right before heading to Penn State, right? So if you remember a season ago, here's another reason why I think it affected me so much. Joe, remember the first month last year for Oregon? You're in a dogfight with Idaho. You're in a dogfight with Boise State.
Right.
What's the difference? You had a senior quarterback. You had a guy who had been all over the place, knowing exactly how to come in and retake things over. Joey got drafted in the 3rd round to Dillon Gabriel. Like what?
Fourth. Oh, no, yeah, no, 3rd round. Sorry.
3rd round, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
How do I know more about the draft than you?
I mixed. You know what?
I'm just messing. But regardless, Joe, remember that first month?
Yeah, it was brutal.
It was brutal. Well, it was.
We were questioning if they were real, if they were going to stink.
Correct. What was the real Oregon? Now, we don't normally go like this when we talk about these types of situations, meaning you and I. But you have Montana State, Oklahoma State. You have Northwestern on the road, which, come on, Oregon State. Joe, you have a month before you have to prepare for the real litmus test of going back on the road, across country, going to Pennsylvania against Penn State. I feel like that should be enough time. You have a month before that during camp to figure it out. Now, I told you off air the situation with Evan Stewart the way it was told to me. They were already putting in work, and good for them, and I'll leave it there. But the bottom line here for me is you did have a struggle in the beginning of it to start off the season a year ago. Is that still going to be a problem for you now? Can Dante Moore take the steps that he needs to take? And Joe, quite honestly, they're going to have to run the football early to take some pressure off of him. You're going to have to do that to let him get his feet up under him and let the game slow down. I don't want to say that Evan Stewart's absence is such a big deal that we're questioning them as a team. But when you have that much youth, the question mark for me has still got to remain there until they figure it out.
Well, right. I think that's like the really great way to kind of close out this point is I know we've been doing this show long enough that there's kind of like an expectation of the reaction to some of the segments that we do. Like I've kind of started to realize the smart fan bases react appropriately. Some of the delusional fan bases act with some insane comments.
Timothy.
Okay. Come on. what I'm getting at here
I sneezed.
is that
Sorry.
we're bringing up and we're talking about an Evan Stewart injury because this is big news. Like he was expected to be one of the most important receivers in the country. And I think a lot of Oregon fans that are very smart. I really like interacting with Oregon fans because they know a lot about the game and they have realistic expectations and they don't get ahead of themselves too often. I think that they're going to understand why we're talking about this the way that we're talking about it. I always hate when I see comments when either a kid transfers or he gets hurt and they go, "Oh, we didn't need him anyways. Oh, what are you talking about? We don't need him. No, he's not that big of a deal."
He's instantly poo.
Right. Suddenly it means nothing. You can't cope like that. Like it's okay to acknowledge and look at the big picture, which is what we're trying to do here. I don't think that we're going to get that type of a reaction, but we're trying to look at the big picture to illustrate there are other things that happen. Us having been in college locker rooms at the Division I level, we understand when you lose a guy like this, when you lose your top receiver. I was on a team that had two guys. One got drafted. One was a UDFA. One got drafted very early. When that guy wasn't available and there was an injury scare, everybody paused. The locker room would suddenly be a little more quiet the week showing up to a game. I bet things are going to be a little quiet for the next couple of weeks during workouts because everyone's going to be thinking, man, what the heck just happened? What just happened? Guys going to be scared it could happen to them too.
Well, Joe, whoa, shit.
That's a whole other layer.
It's a whole nother layer that people don't want to talk about. But again, we're not changing our preseason thoughts completely on Oregon at all.
No.
To not acknowledge that a 4-year senior in a money year, by the way, are you going to take those catches away that he had against Ohio State in game 1?
Right.
I mean, like Joe, name the quarterback that we've had discussions about that's a first-year starter. Like I put him on Arch Manning. What makes you think I'm not going to put him on Dante Moore?
Exactly.
I mean, the kid came in his first start and threw 2 picks, and some are acting like he's the next Peyton Manning, which he very well may be. But guess what? He threw 2 picks against ULM. He threw a pick against Mississippi State. That is going to happen with freshman quarterbacks. Wait, again, it was on the road. So all I'm saying in here is you started off the season a year ago and things were sluggish. How quickly can you fix those things and have timing and have connection?